What's up, everybody? This is Masonic or Not, Secret Stash edition. We wanted to get together and speak about light. First thing that comes to my mind was what a brother said to us earlier. He said, I've seen men that are blind, but I have not yet seen, and I am confused to see, men who are blinded by the light. So I think that's a really potent topic to dive into. What does that mean to you, AJ? That quote.
I think before to dive, too deeply into the quote, we should first ask ourselves the question, what is light?
What is light?
Now, we could speak from a metaphorical standpoint, of course, a symbolic interpretation or definition of light. However, the literal definition, light or visible light, right, is electromagnetic radiation. Within the portion of the electromagnetic spectrum that can be perceived by the human eye.
Interesting.
Right?
So, wow. Okay.
By the human eye.
Right.
So light is usually defined as having wavelengths in the range of 400 to 700 nanometers, or between the infrared and the ultraviolet. Now,
that's so interesting.
Yeah, so we're talking about when people say
Think about that.
Frequencies, my vibe, right? My vibe is kind of short for vibration. We don't see eye to eye. You're not picking up on my vibe. You're not on my frequency. You're not on my level. You're not seeing things the way I see it. Is because the literal definition of light is a very specific vibration and frequency, right?
Correct.
So for you to see truth or what's in front of you, literally, in the physical world, you need to be operating at a certain frequency, and so does light. And we all know, of course, on planet Earth here, where's our main source of light?
The sun.
It's the sun. And even at other part and moments, the moon and the stars.
Well, the moon, the moon's source.
Yeah, the light is the reflection from the sun, right?
The sun.
But nonetheless, an object that reflects luminescence to us.
Correct.
Another interesting term I heard. There are certain creatures in nature that have what's called in science, I guess, bioluminescence, which means
their own light.
They create their own light or their own darkness. So I thought that's interesting in just nature in itself to survive, whether it receives light from the sun or our galaxy, is going to in turn just create its own luminescence. That's
symbolic.
It's pretty spectacular.
And you got to keep in mind, now, before I say this, our goal is to dive deeper than what we already know.
Right.
And quite possibly come up with a synthesized definition or certain realizations or inspirations that come from this conversation, as any good conversation should have, by the way. Absolutely. So the other thing I wanted to mention was the human eyes can only perceive a specific portion of the spectrum, whereas theoretically, it's infinite in nature. Numbers do not stop.
Right.
You can only count to 1,000,000 before you get tired, but that doesn't mean you have, God, I don't know what's even after quadrillion, pentillion.
Or pi.
Yeah.
Pi.
Or pi.
Yeah, pi goes on forever. That formula is infinite.
So, in a sense, light, the very basic definition is what we can perceive, electromagnetic radiation that we can perceive. But
Yeah.
where does the philosophical light come in? Is that light thoughts, thought forms, ideas, inspiration that is not necessarily tangible to the human senses? The 5 human senses are beautiful, brilliant.
Which are?
Seeing, tasting, hearing, touching, smelling. And the 5 senses are meant to anchor us in the present moment so that we can be in a state, the perfect state, to receive this light.
Mm.
Because if we're elsewhere, we are not tuned in or focused enough to what the present moment calls for. And that's why recently I've been putting my focus in clarity, in sharpness of mind. Because when we're clear and when we're here, then we can really know what to do. And sometimes we won't know what to do. And that's perfectly okay, because not knowing is also a form of knowing. But we panic when we not know, because we as human beings want to know and want to be in the warmth of the sun, in light. That's why some people are scared of the dark. Mm-hmm. That's why the ancients were scared of the dark as well, because they believed there had to be, once the light went away, there was something sinister, evil towards that condition.
Or the mysterious dark side of the moon, which you can't see.
When you think about it, though, all the mysteries of life are actually perceived and understood in darkness, because they are not physical things that we can see, that we can feel. They're things that we can't perceive with our 5 physical senses, but dwelling in that darkness, you're actually becoming a container for the light. And it goes back to the quote that comes to mind is, the only thing that I know is that I don't know. Because that darkness really truly allows us to be receptive to the wisdom of life and the wisdom of whatever is beyond, which is why we as Freemasons are in continuous search for
light.
The light.
And interestingly enough, like the wavelength, of light is the distance between two life cycles of light. So kind of like when I think of the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end, the point A to point B. Theoretically, if you were traveling from point A to point B at the speed of light, that once you reached point B, you could see yourself once you turned around actually coming from point A, because that's how fast you arrived. So in a certain sense, when we describe the grand architect of the universe as being omnipresent, having that knowledge, having that wisdom of the beginning and the end, is because he's already traveled there.
Yeah.
And his perspective is to turn around and to watch. And even though he knows maybe what occurred, it doesn't mean that we didn't have free will to choose. That's kind of like one of the dilemmas of people's understanding of God or a creator or anything like that is, well, if he knows what I'm going to do, if he understands all, then he knows all, and this, how can he know this? And, like that's just one of the literal interpretations from science.
Right.
That if one was to travel at that speed, you could warp, bend time and see yourself coming to where you are now. And, light.
Wow. That's deep.
Light, I have my own personal beliefs. I think everybody at some point, there's a lot of theories about light. I think that explains a lot in itself. Symbolically, like you said, we use it for the search of knowledge, maybe of oneself or of the universe at large. Perhaps just awareness. We think of enlightenment. What is that? Why is the word light in the term of becoming enlightened?
Because, if I may interject, because I feel that enlightenment takes a very high degree of self-awareness, that light looking back at itself and being able to recognize itself as it is, which we call truth.
Right.
And honestly, truth is such an important subject that is talked about in all of spirituality. Truth. When you know yourself, and the process of knowing yourself is from darkness to light, from the unconscious to the conscious. Because there are parts of myself right now that I might feel like I have figured out, but in truth, probably not. And it takes time.
You're a young man. It's fair to say. And you're on that journey like every other man your age.
Amen. It takes time. Time tells all, as it is said. And when time does reveal to you who you are, you have a choice. That's where the choice comes in. That's where the free will comes in. This is who you are. Are you going to change yourself? Or are you going to remain and be the same? And usually when we are the same, when we choose to remain the same, we repeat the same patterns, the same lessons. We chose to stay in darkness. We chose to allow the unconscious mind to remain in its habits, in its ways. But when we choose our own evolution, something beautiful and spectacular happens. And that is more joy, a greater version of the reality that you currently live in. And not just that, but a gift to the world, a gift of your own awakening, your own enlightenment to the world. And I think that's,
Yeah, no, and as far as enlightenment, that I don't think we can all have, agreement on rarely are there coincidences. I feel like that's one of life's veils as you get older, not that we're old, but as you journey onward through life and you mature, one of the veils that's just constantly lifted once you think you've learned and mastered, that specific lesson, it is that there's more to learn. And that light, even as much light as you might have been able to absorb, in return, there's more light.
Again, why?
Because
there's infinite. There is an infinite spectrum of light,
right,
that we can experience. But if we only experience the light that is visible,
right,
we are only restricted to a certain reality, a certain experience, with not much hope of expanding beyond that.
right. I personally believe another word that's interchangeable with light is love. Because, it's been said that God is love, right? When you think about the properties of love and what it entails, in this world, materialistic things are here and up for the grabs. You can become wealthy many different ways. Maybe you could be Joe Rogan on a podcast. Maybe you could be, the guy who hits the lottery. Maybe you could invest in stock market. Whatever it is, your path to earthly riches, right? Without love, I think even the richest, wealthiest person will tell you all of that is nothing. So to live a full life, okay, with light, and if you have this awareness and enlightenment of oneself, if you've gone through this initiatic, stage in life where you understand who you are, which ultimately is the main goal of initiation, right? Of, whether that be religion or old, many different. It goes through more than one definition of being initiated into
greater awareness of
yourself. That is the core. Now, light, okay, from when a baby comes out of the womb, right? It's already, their eyes are already, it's like they came from darkness. We all came from darkness. We all came from the womb. And the moment you were brought into this world, your eyes couldn't even adjust to the light yet. You couldn't see yet. Your pupils hadn't resonated or dilated yet, or you haven't even settled yet. And I think that's also, emblematic or metaphorical for us in life. That some people are still not seeing it. They're still not aware. They still have not come to where they can focus. Yeah, they still have not.
That's why in initiatic experiences and traditions around the world, birth is always the first stage.
Right.
Birth is always the first stage.
And then, of course, later.
And same thing with, what about with like Christianity?
Right. You're born
water.
Again,
yeah,
and
through
then
water.
Yeah, you're exactly.
Right.
I think the the first covenant, the Old Testament, is kind of symbolic of that. And then to Christians, modern Christianity is the being born again experience. That once you're baptized and you've gone down, you now leave your old life and your sins and that behind you, because Jesus did that too. He actually went through that ceremony, that ritual, to show that he was not trying to change these things, that he was actually fulfilling these things. And
so through even religion, such as Christianity, the number one religion in the world, has initiatic ceremonies and rituals towards more light.
Right. And might I also raise the question too that, when people ask, was Jesus a carpenter? Okay, he was from Nazarene, right? Nazareth. He's a Nazarene Jew. He's from Nazareth, Bethlehem. If you go there for thousands of years, do you know what resource is very scarce?
Water?
Wood. Trees. So most likely he was not working with wood. He was working with stone. So mind you.
You know.
Mind you.
You know.
Mind you, he definitely built things. Okay. He definitely knew math and geometry, and I believe
Wow.
in his teachings, the same way that we hold near and dear symbolism and, metaphors. So did he. Obviously, that's how he spoke,
Correct.
you know.
Correct. Nothing is as it seems. Again, let's go back to the light. He wrote certain things,
Right.
but those writings are only what we perceive through that finite range. But the light therein is that which we receive from reading those texts. And
Absolutely.
it doesn't just have to be the Bible. It could be the Torah, the Quran, the Gita. It can be anything.
It's your source.
Any source of spiritual growth. So
Yeah.
that's a really important lesson, just to really wrap up what we're talking about regarding light and frequency. I mean, sound is a whole different freaking thing.
Absolutely.
Sound is a whole different thing, and I want to do an episode on sound for sure. This was crucial because I feel like what we're trying to instill in people, or whoever is tuning in, all you lovely folks, there is more to life than meets the eye. Again,
Yeah.
we're continuing this spiral
Yeah.
upwards.
And to question even the things, I believe certainly no matter what your faith is, I think at the core of your faith, it teaches you to question. And maybe not necessarily to have doubts, but to have questions and to research those questions.
Curiosity.
I think is almost like doing due diligence,
Yeah, to what is written.
At some point, there are mysteries that we, even as Masons, can admit. There are some mysteries that are not meant to be solved yet.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And that's okay. That's one of the beauties of life, is that to really, we know we're only operating on a certain percentage of our brain. We're only using a certain percentage. For us to really fathom how infinite the universe is, at some point we got to stop. At some point we let go, because we can't really truly understand the infinite, because all we know is come and go. We're flashes of light in a pan. Our lives, our lifespans, our experiences, they come and they go. Our relationships, and that is one thing that brings us all together. That's the one, nothing new under the sun, the one same experience that we all have, despite what country, background, what experience we share as far as class, or, the haves or the have-nots. The one thing that really, really is the true testament of time innuendum from beginning to end is that we are all connected, whether we like it or not.
Because at the end of the day, even the light that we can't perceive is on that singular spectrum
Yeah.
that stretches from infinity to infinity. It is all just a single phenomena happening in here, right now, right here, right now.
Yeah. And I think the core of it all, the journey of exploring oneself and who you are going to be in this lifetime and in this world, it really starts with love. If you haven't found love in your heart, you're going to miss so many blessings. You're going to not receive so many wonderful opportunities and moments in this experience that we're all on, because of your heart being closed. A closed fist, cannot receive the blessing. You can want to give someone love And because their heart is closed like a fist, they won't receive it. So if there's one thing that I feel like, okay, we're in the pursuit of, we're going to study symbols and things, whether they're Masonic or not, in nature or origin. I hope that someone out there, is affected on an inner, more deeper level, not by something that we might have said, not by,
but where it's coming from.
And wherever they are, that there is a source of light and love that is invested in their experience and touches and reaches them. Because without that moment, it's hard to go forward and live a full life.
And that's why faith is our most powerful faculty.
Yeah.
Not reason or logic.
No.
Faith.
The tenet, of charity and brotherly love, the tenets of, I believe,
faith, hope, and charity. The tenets of brotherly love, relief, and truth.
But even like the tenets of even Taekwondo, okay? It's like to never initiate violence, What a profound thing to learn how to defend yourself, and then one of the tenets be to never initiate violence. Now that we've given you this knowledge on how to, be combative, number one, don't ever use it unnecessarily, And I think that's another thing too. It's like once you've learned some really valuable lesson, it's up to you to live it, to share it in more than ways of just, orally, just to speak about it, to live it and to show it and be it. And the number one commandment, that we are to be is light unto the world. We are to be lights unto this world. And if we all take a step back and look at where we are at, we can acknowledge that the world is in a dark place and it's in need of more light and love.
The darkness is where the light manifests. Well,
where it's darkest,
the light
prevails.
So mote it be.
So mote it be.
Thank you guys for joining us on the Secret Stash episode of Masonic or Not.
My name is AJ.
I'm Keon. Please share this video, subscribe, comment below your thoughts as well. And we will see you next time.